I'm unmuted, so we have to be careful what we say.
All right, Mike, just so you know, we are now recording. And folks, before we get started, a friendly reminder, please, just out of respect to everyone, as we're hoping to keep this moving in a very sort of orderly fashion and encouraging a lot of discussion, please keep yourself muted unless we're asking or sort of answering questions there. There will be opportunities where you can unmute and ask those questions, but to minimize the background noise and the distraction, we're asking that you keep yourselves muted. A note in particular, you'll see there may be a little red number 6 down in the bottom in your chat box. If you look at the bottom of the screen, there's a chat option available. It's an excellent location to ask questions. Aaron, Amber, Barikia, and myself will be monitoring the chat continuously throughout the symposium, and we can bring those questions up for discussion. So thanks for monitoring the Zoom etiquette and keeping track of it for us all. And we'll get you guys out of here with a good, thorough discussion and a very respectful one at that. So you can see there, thank you, Mike, for pulling up that slide off our presentation. That chat box there, you can see at the bottom, you can view the other participants there on the side. And then you should have the option to mute or unmute yourself, start and stop video there in the lower left corner of your screen. If you have issues, whether it's connection issues or maybe Zoom just isn't working very well, we've found that Google Chrome tends to work best with Zoom, the application. But if you don't have Chrome available, then certainly whatever browser you use, you can open it up through there. But just heading off a little bit of troubleshooting. And if you do experience some issues during the symposium, Barikia is available in the chat. You can send her a message privately.
Hello? Yes. Hello?
Hi. You can send Barikia a message privately and she'll be able to answer your questions there as well. Do a little bit of troubleshooting. She kindly offered to take that on.
Thanks, Dan. Mayor Sadler, looks like we have about 65, 70 folks. It's up to you if you want to say a few words, and welcome everybody. Just unmute your microphone.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thanks for taking part in this meeting to develop 15th Street corridor to make the street safe for pedestrians and motorists alike. Myself and Mayor Pro Tem Brooks are at the P.S. Jones High School Memorial Museum. Along with Mr. Brooks and myself, we have some community members also that may be just listening in and maybe asking questions tonight. If so, they will be raising their hand on at the appropriate time. And I'd just like to thank everyone for coming out. And as we discuss this project tonight, please keep in mind that this is a fresh start. We do not have a plan. The purpose of this symposium is to come up with a plan that the community, DOT will support, and most importantly, will fund. So everyone, please feel free tonight, ask questions and share your concerns. And thanks for taking part in this.
Thank you, Mayor Sadler. Jonathan, you want to say a few words?
Yes. Again, just kind of echo some of Mayor Sadler's statements. I want to thank everyone for participating. We're trying to have as much public input in this process as possible, in order to build some consensus on a plan to take back to DOT. But again, just want to thank everyone for participating tonight. We're early on in the process for this development. But again, try to keep an open mind as we go through these slides this evening, and please contribute in any way possible. But again, thanks for attending this evening.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. So let's jump into it. My name is Mike Rutkowski. I am with Stantec. We are an engineering firm based in Raleigh. And we've been asked by the mayor, Jonathan, and a couple other constituents, Betsy Kane being another one, of the council to, take another deep dive look at 15th Street corridor. I love the way that we cross this out. It's not just another corridor study. We want to relabel it because we're doing something entirely different that was never done initially. We're really trying to be transparent, open, and make a meaningful conversation. So we're going to call this 15th Street Complete Street Study. We need to look beyond just the curb and gutter. We need to look beyond moving cars and moving them fast, but really understand how we live, work, and play along this corridor. So tonight, a little bit about this. We will definitely get you out at 7 o'clock on the dot. It's no use in going 2 or 3 hours. This is the first really event that we have to open up the collaboration. Our focus this evening is very direct. Number one, we are looking at problems. We are asking you several questions along the way about problems and issues, and then potentially some solutions to those problems. We want to better understand how you relate, how you interact along the corridor, whether you're a commuter, a business owner, someone that walks from A to B to get to the store or get to a medical clinic appointment. And so we just need to better understand how people are using it today and some of your frustrations. I know a lot of people, we've already conducted 2 focus group area discussions, and we've learned a lot. We also have a website, we'll introduce that in a little bit, and which has a public survey and an interactive map to help you kind of interact and share additional detailed information with you. So tonight we're going to go through a little bit about what the data tells us, right? Obviously crashes and volumes and the like, and really understanding causational issues behind them. What, not just number of crashes, but what's causing them, right? And not just for cars, but for people too. So, and the other one is we're going to have a live polling session. We want to do a deep dive and talk to you and open up the dialogue. Most of it's going to be done with the chat because we have probably 80 or plus people on here, but share your thoughts. We are videotaping this entire hour and a half session. We call it a project symposium. It's a glorified name for a workshop. And we're going to post it onto the project website. Tell your friends, constituents, your neighbors to go there, digest, and better understand what the purpose of the project is and our end goal. And we'll cover some of that too. So let's jump right into it. Yeah, the agenda, live polling, and then we'll talk about next steps as well. And that'll include direction into the next big event, which is our multi-day design workshop. We're really, really excited about that. And hopefully we can skirt around the COVID era here, but who knows? We'll make sure it's meaningful either way, either live, in-person event, or some kind of hybrid where we're doing virtual as well. So introduction. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the project. This is not a Stantec project. In fact, this is a community project, and it is the city of Washington's project. So our project team is just not a consultant. It's with city staff, city administration as well. Jonathan Russell is our project manager representing the city, and Aaron Yule is our really our PR outreach person. She's handling a lot of different things, and she's on live. Both of them on live today, along with some select folks from the commissioners or the council, as well as your mayor. So thanks again, Mayor Sadler, for joining us. This is meaningful, and he's been already involved in most of the calls that we've had. Also with us is Dan Henney and Amber Lewis, the urban designers, planners, engineers, landscape architects, to really look at this holistically. So share your thoughts. And again, this will not be the only event that we do. Speaking of, let's talk a little bit about the schedule. A lot of people have asked about this already. I think Mary Day reached out with Ned and some of their constituents about, how is this going to be the same thing that we did 4 years ago when NCDOT did this project? And the answer is no. This will be very transparent. So we broke it out into kind of a 4-legged stool, if you think about it. The first phase is nothing but that. It is the due diligence. It's where we do our street inventory. We look at the crash data and the volume data and the demographics. Who are you? There's a lot of communities out there, neighborhoods that are surrounded that have either low income or zero vehicle households, how they interact with the corridor is much different than someone going through the corridor for work or to go to the beach. And so we need to really understand how people are using that on a daily basis. We're right here. We're right at the project symposium. This is that workshop tonight. And really, this is where we learn about the problems and issues and maybe some potential solutions. But after this, we really kind of start to finalize what are our guiding principles. We can't do everything for everyone. So we're going to have to prioritize and make trade-offs about modes, bicycle, pedestrian, transit, people with ADA compliance and disabilities. And so, and what does that all look like? So the next phase is the green phase over here. And that's your 3-day design. People call them charrettes. It's a French word, but we'll call it a 3-day design workshop to limit confusion. And that's really exciting because that's where we'll actually do design, 15, 20% level of detail, plan views, so you can really see the footprint and its impacts along the entire 1.6 mile corridor. In fact, we are going from Brown Street all the way out to US 17 business. So that's 1.6 miles. I think I was incorrect the last time we talked about it, but that's okay. We'll get through this. And then we're also going to do some renderings so you can understand what it kind of looks like. Some of those you'll see tonight from other projects to give you an idea of the different perspectives that we'll show and share with you. And the last phase, we'll come back after modifying those designs. We'll actually run cost estimates on those to better understand what's it going to cost along the entire corridor. And then it'll culminate through an open house. We'll come back, share all those recommendations, and really focus our attention on phasing, cost, and implementation, and hopefully taking that next step. All along this way, we've got to coordinate with NCDOT. They are our partners here. And why? Because they own and operate this road. And so we need to make sure as we go along here, we not only design to their parameters, but we bring them along so that they can hear what the people are telling us, what the community is telling us. So that's important. COVID, I'd be remiss again if I didn't talk about COVID and the impacts we're having. We're virtual tonight, and we all understand that. Your mayor's even wearing his mask as we speak. So it's important to us to stay healthy, stay safe, and do the proper protocol for COVID. A lot of the interaction is going to be online, unfortunately, or virtual. And so please respect that. Hopefully down the road, we'll be able to meet each other face to face, but we're going to make sure we've done this. This is not our first time doing this. We've done several projects this similar way over the past year, and it's really been great. It allows us to be open and responsive because we're not going anywhere, neither are you. So you can pick up the phone and contact us. What do we know today? Dan, you want to take over?
Let me go ahead and unmute myself, Mike. Thank you. So if you remember from the last slide, the previous phase that we were in was that beginning that investigation phase. And so for the past month and a half, we've been collecting information on 15th Street on this really important corridor for your city to better understand what's going on. What are the challenges that are presented? How are people using the corridor? And ultimately gauging your feedback as well. What do you perceive as being the challenges? And so, one of the things that we've first seen is that this is a major corridor for Washington. For a town of your size, we see a lot of traffic moving up and down 15th Street, east and west on a daily basis. As much traffic as major corridors in towns much larger than Washington. So this is clearly one of the most important corridors and one of the most important streets for your town. And so it's really important that we accurately and appropriately capture how folks are using it and how they would like to use it. Not just how you're using it currently, but perhaps how you aren't but would like to. And so, we look at a street though, we look at 15th Street and we don't just look at, what's the traffic volume that's moving down the road. We want to look at it holistically, not just what's going on between the curb, but also what's happening outside the curb. And so this profile helps us to understand some of the characteristics as you're traveling from US 17 all the way over towards Brown Street. What are the conditions and what are some of the characteristics that we see that and how do they relate to each other? And so one of the first things that we see is that, again, there's that high traffic volume relative to the size of the town that you have. One of the key things you'll see here, no sidewalk facilities of any kind. If you look in that map above, those orange lines represent sidewalk segments in the town of Washington. You'll see nothing traveling from west to east on either side of the corridor. And so that's something that's particularly significant, especially when you look at the number of bicycle and pedestrian crashes that we've seen. And so, we see there on that second line, and Mike's pointing it out there with the cursor, despite the fact that, coupled with the fact that we're seeing a lot of traffic there on the corridor, we're also seeing a large number of fatal and severe car crashes and also bicycle and pedestrian crashes. And that's particularly the case when you look just off of 15th Street and you look inside of that pink study area. Mike, if you can go to the next slide. So on this next slide, we're looking at the not just the fatal and severe crashes, but all of the crashes that are happening along the corridor. And so this is looking at all of the intersections and where we're seeing problems. And so what we find through this data, through the crashes and through this data, what it tells us is that 15th Street has a crash rate almost, it's 1.4 times the state average for similar roads. That's a really high figure. And it tells us that the current 4-lane approach that you see traveling down 15th Street isn't working. We shouldn't see a crash rate that high. And so we also know from this data, and it's not represented here, that the most significant, so the highest proportion of these crashes that you're seeing here are turning crashes. And so we look at that and we say, well, what's causing those turning crashes? It may be the lack of a dedicated turn lane. And so those are the kinds of things that we're taking into consideration and looking to see, what does the data tell us? And so on this map here, you can see, your big intersections with high crash frequencies are right there at Washington Street, right around the Washington Square Mall. And also Market Street, again, another major corridor for the town of Washington. And so, I think we look at this and we see, well, there's a higher degree of activity closer towards the Washington Square Mall, but there's still a lot of accidents happening elsewhere. And so critical to creating a complete street here that's going to function for everyone is resolving what's causing all these accidents. And you'll see as well that there's those 3 black boxes, and those are pointing out where we've seen those fatal and severe crashes. And so you can see 2 of those are pedestrian crashes, and that was part of what motivated this study, is my understanding originally. So Mike, if you go to the next slide.
Yeah, Dan, we're going to speed this up a little bit, but Linton writes in the chat box, how much did the volume change after 5th Street was reduced from 4 lanes to 2? That's a good question. I don't have that answer. Does anybody else, like Jonathan or anyone else, have that, or at least an idea? Did it go up significantly? Did it go down, or percent?
And I don't have that information available. We could do some research to see if there were any noticeable changes, but I don't have that currently. I know there may be other variables at play there as well, with development that's taking place, with relocation of the grocery store on the commercial sector. But again, we can look into that.
All right, perfect. Another question that we have here are those spots with fatalities are where pedestrians must either cross 15th or use 15th rather than side streets. Yeah, and you are absolutely correct. That came from Dominique. Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. So here on this next slide, you'll see bike ped crashes. And so this is where we're looking at where people might be wanting to use the street, whether it's on bicycle or by foot, and are having issues. And so you can see there's a couple clusters there on the west side, again, as we would expect around the Washington Square Mall, where there's going to be a lot of commercial activity. You can go to the next slide. So apart from the data that we've received sort of about how people are using the road, we also wanted to gauge your perceptions. And quite frankly, we've gotten a lot of response so far. 308 survey responses, 201 interactive map comments. Some of those you can see on the right side of the slide there, and pointing out things like speeding is an issue here. There's issues for not being able to safely cross 15th Street. And that's right over by Market Street, where one of the pedestrian fatalities happened. And then also we're looking at some of the comments we received from you about, you'd love to be able to walk, but it seems way too risky. And so people are saying, hey, we'd like to be able to walk along 15th Street, but we're choosing to drive instead. So Mike, you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, I'm just going back to the chat box. You know you're gonna get it. Mimi
Okay.
Spear. Yeah, Mimi Spear has a good comment here, and she was talking about the the fatalities at 15th along 15th, and her comment is it's because of excessive speeding along 15th Street. Another comment from Mimi also said there were 2 fatalities, one near Hampton Inn on 15th, and the one on 15th at I think was Brown Street before Tractor Supply. So
Yeah.
good
All right.
comment.
And so, absolutely, fantastic comments so far. Keep them coming. And so, when we look at, some of the responses to the survey, what is it telling us about how you'd like to use the road and what you see that it's missing? And so what we see is that 15th Street really is both a critical destination. Almost a fifth of the use of folks who respond to the survey say they use it to travel to a business, to get to Vidant Health or to another medical clinic up and down the corridor, but also as access to major highways. So it's home to both local traffic and that through traffic back and forth each day. So, we asked what your biggest concern is, and overwhelmingly it's the 4-lane cross section. It's the fact that you're missing that turn lane. And I think when you look at the second thing about safety and crashes and knowing, hey, it's those turning crashes that are the big issue. I think you look at that and you can say, hey, so there's clearly an issue with not being able to safely make turns here as a function of how the road is designed. And also that 15th Street is dangerous for bicyclists and pedestrians. Only 2% of you in responding said that you were satisfied with bicycle and pedestrian safety, compared to 84%. So overall, the picture we get is a road that sees a lot of traffic and is vital to Washington, both for people traveling by car as well as by bike or foot, but it's significantly more dangerous for people who are not traveling by bike or they're not traveling in a car. And that's limiting how people can or would like to use the roadway. And so with that,
And Dan, that's pretty consistent. Yeah, it's pretty consistent with the focus groups. And we only had a couple of them, but the community that lived there and communities and the business owners are also saying the same thing. It's tough to be a bicyclist, someone on 2 feet or 2 wheels going through this corridor or trying to cross the corridor.
Yeah.
So our next, and thanks, Dan, that's good. So Dan kind of highlighted, what the data tells us, traffic, crashes, digging down deeper, and even the location, the geographical location along there. So what I want to do is kind of talk a little bit about complete streets. You may not have heard about that. Previously, it's just a new, actually been around for 15 years. So what makes a complete street? And that's really a good way to understand. We're looking at it more than just moving cars. We really want to move people. And to me, it is a process. I coined this phrase. I'm not quite sure if it's worth of anything, but I really think of it as a process and not an end product, not one size fits all. And the dynamics for each community are different. The threshold of congestion of each community is different. But honestly, when a complete street is just making great places and very comfortable for folks to go to A to B and to make some their trip making. What are complete streets? Well, there's a misnomer there, if you will. Complete streets doesn't mean we provide for every single mode of transportation and freight mobility, right? It really says that it's really down to 3 things. A complete street should be safe, it should be comfortable, and it should be convenient for all users. And that's really the premise. They're all designed different ways based on the functionality of the corridor itself. So that's really important to understand. The process is another thing that I kind of defined over the past 10 years of focusing our attention on retrofitting streets. And let's face it, 96% of complete streets are retrofitting a problematic road, right? It's either a congestion issue, a safety issue, a lack of multimodal issue, or an economically depressed corridor. Some of them have a combination of that, which you do as well. I would say lack of multimodal, and you got some congestion and safety on there. So first of all, we need to define the problem. And I think that was one of the things that was missing when this project was initiated 4 years ago. We never took the time to sit down and look at the data, tell us what the data tells us, and tell us what the people tell us. Perception in this case is everything, right? If you feel unsafe walking across the street, that's an issue we cannot ignore. So define the problem first, and then prioritize modes. We cannot do everything for everyone. We can't put all modes as a priority. So we need to understand who has priority along the corridor. And then we also need to ask, define the design limitation. I know this is going to trigger into Ned. I'm going to pick on you a little bit because you brought this up in our focus group. And the key is this: define design features and limitations. Are we designing between the curb to curb? Because if we move curb, we hit drainage and there goes the cost. Are we staying within the right-of-way limits? Because if we take a building or a business, there goes the cost of the project. Or is there a budget that we're trying to adhere to? We need to ask those questions up front. Once we have the prioritized modes, and we understand our limitations, now we can make trade-offs. And that's part of where we're at. We're trying to make trade-offs in order to, if we need to repurpose area or pavement, we understand who that area is dedicated to. And that's it. It's that simple.
And Mike, I think we have a couple of questions in the chat.
Sure.
One from Esmedine, and thank you for your comment. She lives on 14th Street and sees folks use 15th Street to get to various shops and doctor's appointments, and just want to emphasize that if there were safer sidewalks, that would be safer for the community. And that seems to be kind of a common comment. And then from Lowell, asking if there's proper signage and lines on the roadway and if that's been taken into consideration.
Yeah, the second one, so absolutely the first one, you got to have, this is a people street. You're in an urban environment. You've got to have places where people can walk. And most important, you got to have safe passage getting across this corridor. There's very few, even the simple crosswalks is absolutely missing from this entire corridor. It makes no sense. So local proper signage, yeah, we need to think about how we use signage and pavement markings along the entire corridor to make sure that drivers know where they're supposed to be, as well as bicycle, pedestrian, and transit users. So good job. Now what I'm doing, and we'll come back to the box. So thank you, Aaron. This will give you kind of an idea of just the level of detail and the kind of the perspectives we're doing. Some may be visionary, like the top right-hand corner, to understand, hey, we're trying to create a different environment. While other things may be very design-oriented, top left, that's that physical footprint. We're actually going to show you that level of detail so you can drill down and see where maybe a median is placed here, or what this intersection is going to look like, or where are the future bus stop locations along here. And I'll stop in a second. Aaron, you can chime in too. But one of the things we did here, and I think Mary Day, you're pretty instrumental in sharing this. I think Scotty was another one. James, you're on the phone call as well. And you also, all of you brought up the issue of crossing the road. And that's really something that we need to design into this and make better passageway for bicycle, pedestrian, and transit users, and make it predictable. One of the things you told us, it's a 4-lane road. DOT is not building any more 4-lane roads. This road was once a 2-lane. In fact, it was probably a dirt road 80, 90 years ago. And then they resurfaced it, they surfaced it with asphalt, and then they widened it to 4 lanes. And so its function 80 years ago is completely different than the way it's functioning today. So why aren't we redesigning the road to accommodate today's function and the way it's being used? I'm going to stop there. Aaron, any comments? Or anyone, you mute yourself too.
Unmute, Aaron.
That would help. Sorry. A good question from Mimi. You're just asking about if additional traffic lights would be installed. There's currently none. From the light tractor supply to Market Street, would traffic lights not slow down traffic on 15th Street a little bit?
Yeah, that's another great question. Thank you. And the key is this: we can't tell where we're going to do that at this stage. We got to figure out. One of the things I would advocate for is really to think about the speed you want to advocate. We already heard the need for traffic calming. We already heard the problem is people speeding, or one of the problems. So traffic signals are not an end-all solve or solution. In fact, they frustrate people as well. In certain cases, in our case, we definitely want the signals to coordinate together. We want them communicating together. Why? Because if you program them, that's called a progression controlled signal system, And if you program them all together, if you're driving at 35 miles an hour and it's posted 35, you'll hit a signal 80% of the time through the entire corridor. But if you're going 40 or 45 or 50, you're going to stop and go. You're going to stop and go. So it's real important that we control and we coordinate the signals as we move forward. So sorry for the long drawn out message. Any more, Aaron?
I think many of them echo the same sentiment. Dominic mentioned he crosses 15th Street from a cemetery to Bonner several times a week, and just kind of scary crossing access on that road. That seems to be the general concern, just safety crossing 15th Street.
Okay.
Yep. I think we're good.
And really, and if you look at the schematics that we're showing here, it's meaningful, right? We do want to, hey, Tina, good to see you. We do want to delineate it better, much better than what it is today. Today's terrible. I'll confess that. I would hate to walk along this corridor, and I dreadfully hate to, try to walk across it. So things like treatments at the intersection, top left corner, and the bottom, even the intersections that are non-signalized, we need to do a better job to delineate pathways and make it more predictable for people.
And Mike, we're getting a lot of questions about speed and speeding being an issue, and whether speeding is documented on that road or assumed, and how that might be handled moving forward.
Oh yeah, I see Fonda. Thanks for the comment. Is speed documented or assumed? We got access to some data, but we'd have to coordinate. And Aaron, that'd be a good thing. Let's coordinate with the police and see the number of calls they had, if they've done a speed gun exercise. If they haven't, it would be great to do that. I would say most of the speeding is happening outside of the peak hour, only because there's fewer cars and people have free access to both lanes. But yeah, I think that would be good if we could put that on our action items. That would be fantastic. So Fonda, very good comment. Mimi also says, yeah, it is one of the biggest problems. They do not drive 35 on 15th Street. So excellent comment. Hey, Jonice is here too. Good to see you chiming in, Jonice. And I hope I didn't slaughter your name again, but the population of pedestrians include public housing. This is a large use of walkers. Yeah, that bears repeating. Some folks, this is their mode of transportation or bikeway too. And so we need to be cognizant of that, which is terrific. And Gwendolyn agrees with your comment there. And so does Attila too. All right, I'll shut up about the comments here, but you guys are killing it. And I'm gonna remind you, we're documenting all these. So whatever we don't answer tonight, we'll definitely, make sure we answer them down the road. All right.
I have a question. I don't know if anyone can hear me.
Yes, we can. Mayor Sadler.
Yes. So we avoid spending time and debates on plans that DOT would not fund. Do you know any models or plans that North Carolina DOT will definitely not fund?
Oh, things that really are fatal flaws? Yes, we ran into them. So when we designed this through there, that's a great question. So what Mayor Sadler's alluding to is, hey, we could probably support the things that they do support, but are there any fatal flaws or any examples where, they won't support it? So yeah, there's a number of things, and cost is going to be one of them, and figuring out if we can adhere to their budget, which, and personally, I think we should be able to stay within their budget constraints if this project continues to be funded. And we'll let Jonathan talk about the funding issue, because I know that's going to come up later. But there are certain things like you have a hard time putting like a continuous median down the whole area. And only because you're going to have a lot of backlash from people, from business owners. And so that's probably not going to be a viable option, nor is burying all of the utilities at this point. I know they don't have any funding for that. They've already mentioned that. That's not going to be an option. Maybe portions of it, maybe. So there's certain things that we'll look at. Grade separations, I don't think you're going to see anything like that. So and things, just really fatal flaws that they just not going to support on this.
Mike?
Yeah,
Mike? Yeah, I'm sorry, I would use the chat box, but I'm not sure how to use it.
That's okay. Go ahead, Bo.
What's your data for all the traffic and the speed and the accident information? What's your source data?
NCDOT. Yeah. All of the crash data comes from your police, and they get all of that information. And the ADT counts, they actually have counters out there that they've collected that over the years. So it's a history of that. So yeah, great question.
And
All
Mike,
right.
I might chime in real quick, and this may be a question from Jonathan, but Mimi's asked a question, whether the drainage system on 15th Street will be updated. And that may be Jonathan or Mayor Sadler question.
I can comment on that. Yes, some of that will be improved. The existing drainage there is undersized. Again, dating back to when the road was first created, there wasn't nearly as much asphalt in the area. So some of that would be addressed. There are several sectors along that corridor that cross in the pattern of how the water's flowing towards the river. We are addressing some of that beginning this summer through a Golden Leaf grant that we received, $3 million of funding to address some stormwater issues near the hospital in Brown Street. So there's several sectors there along this corridor, but it will be addressed as part of the project.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan. And folks, in the interest of time, I'm going to kind of go through a little bit faster. We may not be getting to all the chat. We got over 80 people here as well, but that's okay. Let's pull out some really interesting ones that we haven't heard, Aaron and Dan. I think that's be great, and we'll try to address those. Other ones we'll address through our website too. So we did want to share with you some other similar projects. Some folks say, hey, where's this been done before? Sunset Avenue, just finished that up. And honestly, it's a 5-lane road with huge gaps, no sidewalks, and very similar, in fact, 2.5 miles, but it has everything that you guys have. Single family, multifamily, big box, grocery stores, medical clinics, and the like along the corridor. So this is kind of what they went with too, really emphasizing better amenities for bicycle, pedestrian, getting across the road. Pedestrian level lighting was a huge issue to there, and so was creating gateways into the community. Another one, proven payoff, right? Another one is Cedar Street in Beaufort, North Carolina. Cedar Street, everybody been on there. It's kind of that forgotten street that used to be the heart of their retail corridor. And now it's kind of run down and poorly maintained. And so, we're just showing a kind of a before and after, kind of making some improvements to kind of slow down folks. I think traffic calming was a big issue there, including planting medians, wide sidewalks to encourage development and redevelopment was huge focus of this. And really slowing down vehicles so that they can share the road with some of these bicycle users. Partial implementation, that basically what we mean by that is an NCDOT, same division engineer, same person that's assigned to our project here in 15th Street was instrumental in moving some of the improvements along and making those physical improvements. So huge success story there. Last but not least, another proven payoff, Avondale Drive in Avondale Estates, Georgia. It too was a 4-lane and 5-lane, very similar to what you guys have. And they chose to go through a road diet. We ran through the options. Widening was almost impossible, just like it is for you guys. And they chose to bite the bullet. And there's some trade-offs there about slowing cars down and stuff. They put in a multi-use path, a 10-foot multi-use path to be shared by, people that are, 8 years old to 80 years old on bikes and on scooters and with baby carriages and the like. So, but a separate protected side path, traffic calming, pedestrian or planted medians, and then a real keen focus on intersection treatments like the one you see here. All right, here comes the fun part. I'll stop there. Aaron, is there anything from the chat box worthy of sharing with these kind folks? And
yeah, I think one more from Mimi, just asking if medians will have brakes to make a right or left turn.
Yeah, if they're here's the
on
thing.
Intersecting streets.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Here's the thing. You got 4 lanes right now, right? And we've heard it, and I've seen it before because there's a roadway that's 4 lanes in Raleigh, and it's horrific. Whenever, and we hear it, everybody on this phone who has ever been behind a wheel on 15th Street has experienced this. That dreaded car that takes a left turn, right? What happens? You jockey for position, you look in your blind spot, and you weave over to the outside lane to go around that car that's got its blinker on. And everybody is white knuckle driving. So the lack of that, what I call flip-flop lane, it's also called a suicide lane. We want to control that a little bit. And I would recommend for you folks here that we look at an opportunity to put that in without necessary winding. There might be some options down the road. If we do put in medians, I would think you would want to do that in only dedicated areas that would slow down cars and create that sense of enclosure, but still keep it open to provide a left turn, opportunities for left turns all the way through the entire corridor. All right, this is where the fun part is. And we're going to ask you to vote. That's right. So I'm going to open it up, and we're going to have 8 or 9 questions, and we want you to vote. And we're going to keep that and memorialize it because we're not only videotaping this, this will be, the results will be reported on Aaron's website too, which is a lot of fun. So let's jump right into it. We're almost halfway through our symposium. I think we are. So this is perfect timing. So I'm going to start the polling, then I'll get into our first question. Bear with me.
Mike, Mike, do you mean unsafe and unattractive?
All right, let me go through this first, Mary Day. Let me try going through this first. I'm going to launch it. And then
Okay.
we'll go. So first question is, how do you rate the overall quality of 15th Street? And I want you to pick one. And it could be your own perspective, Mary Day, your own perspective, right? A, it's poor, it's unsafe, and yeah, it's unsafe and unattractive. You're correct. Use that as unattractive. B, it's below average. It needs a little help. C, neutral. I can go either way. D, it's above average, serves its purpose, and it's attractive. And E, it's excellent, it's perfect. Every day, love driving and walking on it. Please vote. Great, great observation, Mary Day. You're way ahead of me. But that's good. And I'm going to share these results instead of just document and put them aside. I'm going to open it up and we'll share it with you guys. Tina, you look like you're walking on the moon. Perfect. All right. Folks, you can vote on that. And again, pick one. If you need more time, let us know in the chat. And Dan, Aaron, and Barikia, please monitor that. Amber as well. We got about 60. We want a few more people. All right, I'm going to do a countdown in the interest of time. Going once. Going twice. I'm going to end the polling and share the results. Wow. Okay, not a big surprise there, but a little shocking how much. 74% say poor, unsafe, and unattractive. Well, basically 97%, below our average or poor. And that's pretty disturbing when you think about it, but it kind of reinforces what you guys are supporting. So I'm going to stop sharing that and go on to the next one. All right. Our second question, let's focus on that. Our second question is, what is the biggest problems, plural? What are the biggest problems with the 15th Street? Now I want you to pick two in this one. Is it A, lack of intersection treatments? So that could be crosswalks, pedestrian countdowns, lighting, street trees, that sort of thing. B, no left turn lanes. C, it's safety and speeds. D, no sidewalks or pedestrian lighting. E, poor development or redevelopment. F, congestion, there's just simply too many cars. G, no bike facilities. Or H, something else, something we haven't even thought about. So vote for two, and we'll open it up and show the results on this one as well. And as you're doing that, I'll look up this. Attila says, if we have prepared comments, is there an email we can send it to? Yes, you can send it to Erin and we'll share her email. You can get it one of two ways. It's actually the last slide of this PowerPoint, or you can post it into the website. Her contact information is there as well. So thanks for doing that. We'd love to hear it. We've already collected a number of them as well.
And I'm going to, Mike, drop that right in the chat now. So yes, everyone is welcome to email me. So that's coming in a moment.
Yeah. Linton also says, I'm gonna let people answer this because it's two-part. We're about 56. Linton says, is the plan to reduce the 4-lane? Honestly, we don't know yet, Linton. We need to understand, again, we need to understand what the problems are. The problem what happened 4 years ago, Linton, is that DOT knew what you needed before they even asked you. Mary Day, am I right? Am I wrong? They went ahead behind closed doors and they knew what you needed based on their experience. They didn't ask. And so when they assumed to widen it and they took all the property and it impacted everybody, that's when they got tarred and feathered. So we're not doing that. So we're not coming in here and being presumptuous saying you need to do X, Y, Z, but we're going to give you a compelling reason based on the issues and problems that you identify. What you guys want to do. It's ultimately a community road. So great, excellent question. I'm thankful that one was asked. All right. Anybody need more time? Go to the chat box and Aaron interrupt me or Dan, but I'm going to do a countdown on this one. This is great. It's across the board. So going once, going twice. I'm going to end the polling and share the results. There you go. And someone put it, Mary Day, put a thumbs up if you could see the results. If you can see, thank you. All right, there you go. Wow, lack of intersection treatments, crossing, again, supports a lot of what you told us already, especially in the interactive mapping exercise online. 58%, that's tremendous. Followed by no left turn, yeah. And it goes back to what we heard, and I think Danny alluded to that in the results of the survey. No left turn. It's incredible how you guys have done with this. Real close with no sidewalks and pedestrian lighting. Excellent. And then safety and speeds across the board. Someone voted for other. I'm going to pick on someone, and it may be something because I'm intrigued. What else are we missing? Go to the chat box or unmute yourself.
Hey, Mike, Stephen Hardybraz shared lack of ADA accessibility.
Oh, great. Excellent. And regardless of who shared that, Dan?
That was Stephen. Yeah, go ahead, Stephen.
Stephen, that's okay. So the key is this. We would highly advocate, it's ridiculous for ADA ramps to be placed at all key intersections. Absolutely. So terrific. Great.
Mike, can I interrupt you really quick? And I apologize. I had missed a comment back from Roland Wyman and several folks had followed up wanting an answer to that question. Roland, I trust you to unmute yourself and kind of talk through your comment, if you don't mind, your question.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, you are good. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, as I understood it, when I was first getting involved with this issue, the input that I got from the folks within the city that had institutional knowledge indicated that it was never their intention to encourage commuters through 15th Street. And they wanted 264 to be relegated to the commuters. And so that 15th would remain a street for destinations, for shopping, residential, and so on. And so that, to me, plays into the direction that I think this is going, which is an easier boulevard as opposed to a place, if you're going east to west or west to east, a way to blow past Washington.
Roland, that's excellent. So what he's saying, and Roland, you hit it on the head. The way we designed it, if speeding is truly an issue, and we've already heard this before, if it's posted 35, and let's face it, 80 people on this phone, anybody behind the wheel is probably sped along this corridor. And Roland's going, yep, we sure have, because if it's flat and straight, right? Guess what you're doing? You're speeding. It doesn't matter what the speed limit is. Right?
You have to speed just to keep from getting rear-ended.
That's right. So, but I think you hit it on the head. Two things are a factor. One is if we one is GPS, right? If you're GPS and you're a commuter that's going through Washington proper, and if it says take 15th Street because it's quicker, you're going to take that regardless of what the sign says, right? So that's one thing. We can control that. How do we control it? By building in traffic calming and reducing the speed.
Right.
And me as a commuter or a driver, I would rather be moving. If I'm moving slow, I'm still moving as opposed to stop and go.
Exactly.
So Roland, you hit it, absolutely hit it on the head.
And you know, the key here is that when DOT made their proposal a few years ago, the residents saw that immediately is, you know, cause and effect. You widen the street, you make the flow to accommodate a greater number of daily commuters. You're inviting those commuters to use 15th Street and bypass 264.
Not only inviting them, Roland, thank you so much, but inviting them to go fast. And that's what you're doing. Yep. All right. Excellent, Roland. Mayor Sadler, I got to respond to Mayor because he's paying our bills too, but he brings up a good point. I want to make sure there's no confusion here. He says, did I hear you say 4-lane road is off the table for 15th Street? What you're hearing me say, and this is not my decision, but we haven't decided what design we're looking or the cross section at this point. We're still trying to define what the problems are. And then we can really collectively as a group think about, all right, what are the trade-offs? How do we integrate, how do we incorporate bicycle, pedestrian, and transit treatments? And what does that do to the road? We already know right now the 4-lane road is extremely dangerous, and it really acts like a 2-lane divided road when a car is in the middle lane putting on their blinker. People are going around and they're using the outside lanes. So that's a good comment. All right, I'm going to stop sharing on there. Go to question number 3. There you go. This is excellent. You guys are doing fantastic. How safe would you rate? I'm going to launch the polling. How safe would you rate the corridor itself? A, very safe. B, somewhat safe. C, neutral. D, somewhat unsafe. And E, very unsafe. Please vote. This should be easy. And keep in mind, some of the ones that we're saying we're forcing you into a decision, I really like doing that. You may not like it, but if we put like the ones at different options, what's the biggest problem? And we said all of the above, every single one of you would have said all of the above. I love forcing that decision, pick the top 2, because it really highlights priority issues, priority problems. Aaron?
Hey, Mike, quick question. We had a question from Mimi regarding the specific poll. What is the question based on? What factor is it for rating? Is it traffic, speed, accessibility? How should she rate this safety question?
Yeah, right. It's how safe you rate the corridor, no matter how you use it, whether you're on 2 feet, 2 wheels, or behind a steering wheel, or waiting for a transit bus. It's the way you feel, how safe, regardless of mode. That's good. Did I just pop that? All right. That was easy. We just gave you a softball on that one. All right. I'm going to end the polling on the countdown to 3, 3, 2, 1. I am going to end the polling and share the results. All right. Very consistent. You know, we're changing around the terminology a little bit, but it bear with us because it bears to be, it helps us to be consistent. Just make sure we heard what we heard type of thing. So yeah, 85%, somewhat unsafe, very unsafe in terms of the safety of the corridor. So excellent. All right, I'm going to stop that one, go to the next one. All right, question 4. I'm going to open the polling and start that, launch this one. Here we go. Perfect. What is the biggest safety problem? Now, safety, you know, the level of safety issues. Now, what is the biggest safety problem along the corridor? And again, I love this. It really forces you to say, what is the priority safety problem? A, lack of lighting. B, no sidewalks or pedestrian crossings. C, public security, personal safety. You got to think about that, right? D, poor design, sight distance, lack of turn lanes, confusing for the driver and for the pedestrian. E, speeding vehicles. F, large vehicles, trucks, and buses. Didn't think about that. G, flooding. Or H, something entirely different. You please use the chat box. Aaron? I like this back and forth, Aaron. This is good.
Yeah, we did have one question from Medine, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, about people crossing Holloman Street. They fly across 15th and then onto 14th at like very high rates of speed, which is concerning. So overall speeds on roads connected to 15th Street also need to be considered. And I think that's a great point.
Yeah, that is a good point. As well as, you know, whatever we do, someone brought up Fifth Street and the impact and shifting traffic. Whatever we do here, and let's face it, you know, you have 13,000 to 20,000 vehicles along this corridor every given day. You know, what is that? If we do something different, we need to better understand, you know, how that's going to impact other corridors or other streets. Yeah, that's a good point. All right. You guys are doing great on the voting. Dan, anything on your side?
Not that I'm seeing, just recording the chat here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, anybody need additional time here? All right, going once, going twice. I'm going to end the polling. Share the results. Wow, 53% poor design, sight distance, lack of turn lanes. There you go, confusing. It's that center turn lane, you know. Yeah, and then followed by no sidewalks or pedestrian crossings. You know, it's all intertwined, even speeding up there, it's all intertwined. And, but really related to, you know, the poor design that's there today, the 4 lanes. All right, this is good. And nothing in the other box, so stop that. Let's go to question number 5. You're halfway through the questions. We're doing great on time. Let's go to the next one. Question number 5. I'm going to launch this. Here we go. Which modes are most important to improve on 15th Street? I want you to pick 2 this time, your top 2. Which modes are most important to improve? A, walking, B, bicycling, C, driving, D, ADA disabilities, and E, transit. There's your ADA compliance based on the previous question. Which modes are most important to improve? And again, I want to reiterate how much we do appreciate you guys doing this. We know it's in the evening, late in the week, after a work week, but spending time with us is essential. Getting good.
Hey, Mike, quick question. We did have a question from Lyndon. If you could just define a little bit broader what you mean by transit.
Oh, sure. Dan, you want to get an update on the transit through there? It may not be there today, but yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah. So I think there's 2 things. One is I think we can look at transit and we can say we're looking at like medical transit to and from Vidant Healthcare Clinic, or for folks who may not have access to a car. There's actually a large percentage of what we call 0-car households that live close into the corridor. And so it's folks who, again, who may not have access, who may rely on that kind of service. But also, Mike, as you said, you know, we're looking at the future as well. This is a roadway, the design here, you're going to look at for the next 20 to 30 years. So we want to make sure we're considering, you know, whether or not there is some sort of a transit service.
Yeah, and the other thing is Dial-A-Ride Human Services, which there is for the county. And those folks, you know, they have to pay a little fee. Some of them get Medicare, Medicaid vouchers to get to the medical clinics and to get over to Vidant. And that's important. Not everybody picks you up at the doorstep anymore, you know?
And
all right.
Councilwoman Kane also mentioned that we do have BATS, which is on demand, which is the Beaufort County Transport.
There you go. That's it. BATS. Is that what it's called? Oh, it's Beaufort. Yeah, that's right. BATS. Isn't that great?
Area.
Yep. That's the Dial-A-Ride, Medicare, Medicaid. Yep. Excellent. All right. I'm going to end this. 3, 2, 1. End the polling, and I will share that. Oh, look at that. Wow. Driving. There you go. It might be, again, the lack of that center lane and the white knuckle experience that you're doing, followed very closely by walking, and then in the distant ADA compliance and bicycling. Wow, excellent. Thank you. This is really good information. And again, folks, we will share this. We'll actually document it too, because I think folks at NCDOT, folks with the rural planning organization that helps fund these types of projects really need to understand what you told us. I'll stop sharing that, and we're going to move on to the next question. Question number 6. You guys are doing great. Hang in there. All right. I'm going to launch this polling as well. Here we go. Number 6. What is the highest priority need along the 15th Street? Again, pick 2. A, safety improvements. B, protected bike lanes. C, build sidewalks. D, streetscape landscaping. E, less travel lanes, i.e. road diet. F, intersection redesign. G, street trees. H, more travel lanes, widen. Or I, signage. Please vote. And again, pick 2. That would be great.
Mike, Mimi asked a question in the chat box. Define safety improvements, please.
Good question. How would we qualify that? Gosh, I'm stumped a little bit. Safety improvements. Well, that could be intersection safety improvements like sight triangles. If you can't see, we heard a lot before, like you can't see a car coming in on the right that comes in because something's blocking it, or brush or something when a car comes into the sight. Another one would be, as you're coming and someone's taking a left, you can't see around it. That's a safety issue. You can't see around it, so you're resistant to take a left. You're hesitant to take a left because you can't see around a big truck. That's another safety issue. Large crashes at a particular intersection. We need to look up causational factors, and maybe it's because of the signal. It doesn't have an arrow to protect a left turn or an arrow to protect a right turn. That's another safety issue because it's really creating a lot of crashes at that particular intersection. Boy, you almost twisted me on that one. So that's a good one. Catch me off guard. That was good, Mimi. You got me.
Really great questions tonight.
Yeah. You're killing me. All right. You're doing great. Hang in there. Hey, and folks, we're doing great on time. Really good. We got less than a half an hour left. We'll probably get done early because after we're done this, we'll go through a little extra discussion. I really want to see if the mayor and I know you're going to have questions for the administrative side of this project, Jonathan and the mayor, and maybe some of the council folks that are on the call as well. So thank you. And again, if we go back past 7 o'clock, then Jonathan's going to buy everybody ice cream. How's that? That's my vote anyway. All right. Another countdown here. Let us know if you need additional time through the chat box. But yeah, I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1. I'm going to end the polling and share that. Well, there you go. There's your answer. 50% safety improvements followed by build, very close, 47% build sidewalk, just build someplace for people to walk. Followed by intersection redesign and road diet. Okay. Not a big support for street trees or signage. And I shouldn't say support, but they weren't a priority, right? Because we forced you into picking top 2. And again, if we put all of the above for the last one, everybody would say all of the above. It doesn't help us when we do that. So this is great information. So let's document this, Dan.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm gonna stop sharing that. All right, next question. This is good. I'm gonna open up the polling and launch. Perfect. And Dan, let me know if you don't see the launching of the polling or better yet, someone like Jonathan. All right, question number 7. How important is it to avoid right-of-way impacts or property takings on 15th Street improvements? A, very important. B, somewhat important. C, neutral. D, somewhat unimportant. E, I really don't care. Please vote. How important is it to avoid right-of-way takings or impacts to property?
Hey, Mike, getting a couple of questions about defining the terms right-of-way impacts and takings.
Yeah, right-of-way, as you know, every road, this has a curb and gutter. And then beyond that, not every road, but this road in particular has curb and gutter. And then associated with that is a right-of-way. Right-of-way is owned and operated and maintained by NCDOT on this road. I'm not even quite sure what the right-of-way limit is on this, Dan. I'm not quite sure. But at 4-lane, it's probably 70, 80 feet is what I'm guessing. We'll nail that down when we get into the design phase. But the right of way is the area that's owned and operated and maintained by NCDOT. It's usually at or beyond the power poles, if you will. And so, but it's really where the beginning of private property is. And that's what right of way is. So what we're saying, do we need to stay within the right of way? So if we go beyond the right of way, that means we're taking personal property, or we're taking buildings, or we're taking parking. So that's really important. I think that's one of the issues that you contended with, 3 years ago when the first design came through.
Yep.
Great question. And I appreciate it. If you don't know the terminology or we're a little bit fuzzy, ask the question. We'll clarify it. Maria Dickinson, did you have a question? All right, cool.
I have a question or a comment from Mayor Sadler. They've kind of got Jonathan's offering to buy ice cream from everyone, which is great. So I'm trying to sort through all those. Thank you, Jonathan. I'll take a double scoop. But Mayor Sadler just had mentioned we're going to avoid things from the previous design that encourage high commuter traffic and cause citizens to oppose the design. So I don't know if we've gone through that comment yet, but.
And that is reassuring, especially when you have the administration, the mayor, and the like, advocating for transparency and support for this. Let's do this together. Never, like we can look back and learn our lessons learned, but let's move forward. I think that's the thing. All right, going once, going twice. I'm going to end the polling and share the results. Wow, very important, but really down the sliding scale, somewhat important, but a good, 67%, somewhat important and very important. Yeah, not a big surprise on that one either. Stop sharing. Next question. Hang in there. You're doing great. And again, we have a total of 10 questions. So these are absolutely fantastic. Launch the polling. Here we go. What's missing along 15th Street? And I want you to pick two in this case. A, better housing options. And this is where we get into the development, what happens beyond the right of way a little bit, these last few questions. But what's missing? Pick two. Better housing options, locally owned stores and small retail. C, mixed use development. And what we mean by that is retail, commercial with residential or office, the mix of use. And it could be vertical mixed use, it could be separated mixed use, but really mix matching and bringing it all together. D, local restaurants and entertainment. E, big box retail and shopping. F, something else. Other, please use chat box. Or G, nothing. It's fine the way it is. What's missing along 15th Street? Or really, what do you want to see more of or something new along there? Pick two.
Mike, Betsy points out that 15th Street has a huge percentage of the locally owned businesses. Chains are more along Carolina Avenue and elsewhere, but it's 15th Street that has the mom and pops.
What's the percentage someone threw out?
A huge percentage, no number, but just that.
Oh, okay.
This is where the local businesses are.
That is spectacular. Let me tell you, that is it. That's what gives you character. Everybody knows that. Some of the most successful main streets in America have local dollars that are bringing people in. It makes it eclectic. It makes it attractive and clear destinations. That's fantastic. If that's the case, I like that.
Mike,
right.
I'm concerned that all of these choices seem to be commercial. There doesn't seem to be a choice for like a park or anything that all people can participate in.
Yeah, Polk, we'll get that. This is just the first question of 3 that has to do with placemaking and open space, stuff like that. This is more.
All right, I'll hold off.
Thanks, my friend. All right, I'm going to end this polling here. Share the results. Wow, right across the board, but very interesting. Local restaurants and entertainment. We see a lot of that. Locally owned stores and small retail, followed by nothing. You know what? You got a lot there. It's great success. But it is across the board here, and some better housing options too. Affordable workforce housing that as well. Other chat, I'm going to stop right there. We're doing great on time. Who chose other? And just share your thoughts. You can unmute yourself. That's fine too, or use the chat box.
I did, Mary Day, because what I would like to see is more beauty. Parks in places, in addition, and wound in with pedestrian sidewalks, etc.
Awesome. Thanks, Mary Day. And
I
that kind of
chose-
supports Polk's question too. And Ned, you have something?
I chose other because I think 15th Street, if it were made a really nice place to walk and bike and get safely across, it would attract more people. And if it were also physically more beautiful, it would be like the other end of town from the waterfront. The waterfront attracts lots of people because it's very comfy to walk. So 15th could be like that too.
Awesome. Thank you.
I also chose other. This is Grace
Great.
Lexon. Streetscaping and a couple of parks. I like the idea of pocket parks. There's some pieces of property along there that probably won't support much else. That might make nice little parks for the community.
Awesome. Grace, thank you. I love that too. And I noticed there, yeah, the parks are like off the beaten path. Hard to get to. All right, I'm going to stop sharing the results here and go on to our next one. Here we go. There we go. Yeah, this is kind of an interesting dialogue here. This is a recent project we had as well. So, and it speaks, and a lot, you guys are not folks that we placed on the Zoom call here, but Grace and Ned and Mary Day, you know, we talk about making great places, right? You guys kind of fed us into this question, into this dialogue a little bit, but how do you continue to create great places to live, work, and play? And it doesn't have to be reinventing the wheel necessarily. This is just a great example on Sunset Avenue of a dilapidated old fire station that just ran its purpose. Its functionality just ran down. And, and from that, the vision of the community, hey, let's make it with a bucket of paint, a new facade. And we got support from the local brewery to make it a brewery. Hopfly, was interested in doing that. So it's just kind of an interesting thing. Doesn't cost a whole lot of money, but making a great place to people can come meet their friends, have some coffee, and for this particular example is have a beer with your friends. But a great place to hang out. I don't see a whole lot of that along this corridor necessarily. So ultimately, you really need to think about what you're trying to create, right? A walkable environment, things that are attractive. I will say density of development and mixed use drives that walkability factor a little bit. We also want to look at incentivizing opportunities for redevelopment. Local dollars, in my opinion, the return on investment when you have local dollars and the longevity of having locally investments is much greater than franchise America coming in and putting in a new Costco. Some people like Costco, but you know what I'm talking about. Yet another big box like a Target. And then conserve and provide access to open space. I think Mary Day and Grace, you just brought that up as well. Even a small, simple pocket park where people can, relax or reflect or do some exercise, yoga in the park. Doesn't have to be a big footprint, but that's a community-led exercise. And last but not least, enhance that public realm across the context through what we call placemaking. Places that people want to go, want to congregate, want to meet up with their friends. So our first question related to placemaking tools, and this is a visual question, and I hope you appreciate this. I'm going to go to the next slide. We have two more. Launch the polling. All right. Select your top 3 placemaking elements. All right. Your top 3 this time. A, ambient lighting. B, flexible seating. C, interactive play. D, public art. E, interactive water or fountains or interaction, or F, outdoor dining. Please vote. And again, pick top 3. You're fine. I just want to get a sense of what people are looking at. And this is kind of visionary. I don't see any of this necessarily along the corridor, the 1.6 miles right now. So, it'd be kind of to think about long-term down the road. There's certainly areas that are dilapidated or not the highest and best use of property in there, maybe have turned over and used for something else. that could benefit from a reinvestment. You never know. Oh, people are excited about this one. Ned, you got them excited. You're gonna like the results here. We see a lot of communities across the nation that we're working with do special things with lighting. Even their alleyways are being reinvented all over the place. And really nice, convenient, comfortable spots to meet up with a friend or live music, art exposure, you name it. It's kind of cool. All right, you guys are doing great. There's only one more question after this. I'm going to do a countdown here. If you need more time, please let Aaron or Dan know. But going once, going twice, and the poll.
Question from Lyndon. Is it possible to have side roads added across the obsolete strip mall, et cetera, to handle traffic?
Say that again, Aaron. I'm sorry.
Lyndon asked if it's possible to have side roads added across the obsolete strip mall, et cetera, to handle traffic.
Right. Hey, no, that's a good thing. I categorize that, Lyndon, under access management, right? We don't always make the best choices on how and we'll get into that later on, but cross access between complementary uses like a fast food store and a gas station is meaningful. And if you don't have that, we're really hurting the road. That means every trip that goes into the gas station and every trip that goes into that Arby's has to get onto 15th Street and make a left turn, which is terrible. So we're going to recommend making cross-access and backdoor access improvements along this entire corridor. Great comment. We got to do better as planners and engineers with the city and DOT to make sure when development comes in, they require stub outs and shared parking and even shared driveways in some cases. That falls under what I call access management, making better decisions so that not all trips have to be on 15th Street. Excellent, excellent. You guys are really testing me. This is awesome. All right, I'm gonna slow down the results here. Stop sharing the results. Okay, yeah, outdoor dining, followed by ambient lighting. This is very cool, comfortable, right? It's very eclectic. People feel comfortable in this. Followed by flexible. See, you guys are all on there. Interactive play, public art. This is absolutely fantastic. So a lot of things we could do instead of just thinking of this corridor as a commercial corridor or a commuter corridor. This is a complete street, right? And it's an active corridor across all modes and really creates great opportunities for placemaking. So excellent, excellent. All right, I'm going to stop sharing results there. Go ahead.
Mike, there's a great comment from Attila just now, and I think it speaks to your point just now about cross-access. Attila says, we need access to the food line, to the community behind it. And I wonder if there's not people driving on 15th Street from right behind Food Lion who don't have any other way to access it.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, and even connections don't have to be roadway, right? They don't. Why not a pedestrian sleeve that gets folks to the food line, or a walkway or a greenway or a trail that gets folks there? Maybe it's lit with pedestrian level lighting so you don't have to get in your car. Yeah, absolutely. So making good connections, whether roadway or trails or sidewalks, is pretty important. Dan, thank you for that. That's what I like. Chime in. All right, I'm gonna. Boy, did I get the share result? Oh, we already saw that. All right. Next one, last one. You guys are awesome. Let's go to the next one. Stop sharing that. Here we go. Last question. Hang in there. I'm going to launch the polling. Here we go. All right. Second question related to public spaces. Who knew we were going to put that in there? Again, Mary Day is not a plant, nor is Ned, but this just happened to be things that we think about in common fashion. So question number 2 related to public spaces. Select your top 3 public spaces elements. Multiple choice. A, what do you like to see, right? Passive gardens. B, flexible lawns. C, play spaces. D, community gardens. E, greenway trails. F, conservation. G, flexible plazas. Or H, alleyways and courtyards. Awesome. And again, this is not a scientific survey, which is funny. And it's funny when I talk about alleyways and how people are reinventing them. You don't have a whole lot on here, but it's funny when you just suggest that before people stick in their mind and they vote for it. So not a very scientific survey that we're doing here, but it, you know, visual preference survey, I call this. It's great and meaningful. All righty, you did good. Again,
Mike, you have a question that says from Laura, what is a flexible lawn?
Flexible lawn, it could be used for events. It could be used for live music. It could be out there just for seating. So it's just a flexible, multi-purpose, multifunctional lawn that could be a public space. It could be yoga in the park or something like that. So we see a lot of them in downtowns where you have the courthouse square, right? And all this pristine, beautiful lawns that are around them, and no one uses them. I'm like, it's crazy. We actually did one in Shelby, North Carolina. We threw out some chairs just to see what people would do. Just those Adirondack chairs, 3 of them. And it was amazing. They would fill up. And we did that on our own. We spent $20 a piece on these chairs, threw them out there. And every day there were people out there reading, eating food, playing with kids, just relaxing. Before this time, it was never used. The lawn was never used by people. All right, I'll get off my soapbox again. Here we go. Anybody need time? Let Dan or Aaron know. All right. Going once, going twice. Last question. I'm going to share this. Wow, there you go. Wow. Greenways and trails, predominantly 71%, followed by flexible plazas. I think that's great, you know. Get some cool opportunities to do different things. Play spaces, passive gardens. Yeah, you know, we get fresh markets and opportunities for your, you know, doing your own produce for your communities and some of your subdivisions that are out there. And then alleyways and courtyards too. Okay, everything, all encompassing, but quite a few rose to the top.
Mike, I think in regard to this poll, Mayor Seller had a great question, whether DOT would fund park additions as a part of the street design. Is that something you know?
Typically they don't, you know, typically this is the community, but to me, you know, this is your gateway too, right? Much like Rocky Mount was struggling with Sunset Avenue, this is your gateway. You need to announce people that, you know, if you're commuting through our community, we want you to slow down because you're going to anticipate people on our street. And so, and then what happens beyond that? We need to interact with the street a little bit differently. So some of those pocket parks and any of these play spaces, that's probably a community-led exercise. I'm not quite sure the state, at least DOT, may or not pay for that. They may do street improvement, like street trees, but they probably may not buy like a piece of property for you to put in a pocket park or flexible lawn. And that's a community-led exercise, but great question. But the reality is, the state has other programs grant programs that could fund that sort of thing. So that's good. All right. Excellent. I'm going to stop there. And you guys are absolutely fantastic. This has been great. And you're right on time. Let me see what time. Oh, we got that. So I'm going to turn this over to talk about next steps. Actually, I'm not going to turn it over. Our next big event is going to be a multi-day design workshop, also known as a charrette. And you can see up here, we're going to host, every day is going to be the same thing. It's 3 days in a row. Now, again, we don't know when this is going to occur, but it might occur in March. And if we're still dealing with COVID, it's going to be 100% virtual. If not, we're going to do some kind of hybrid. Hopefully, we'll actually place ourselves on the corridor itself. So more to come on that. We'll hold off on announcing where it's going to be and when it's going to be. But you'll see things like this. We're going to host a focus group discussion. See this down here? What I mean by that, we're going to drill down to special interests, special topics. One in particular, as an example, is fire and rescue and emergency services. And we learn a lot from them that we don't learn from anybody on this phone call, right? emergency and time of travel is essential to them. And so they may not care about streetscape or crosswalks. They care about getting to the A to B the quickest. We'll also had design client work sessions, one-on-one. What do we tweak? What do you hear? And then we'll do some focus groups. But this is where I want you to pay attention. Every day, it's going to be 3 days in a row, most likely a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Every day at 5 o'clock, we want you to interact. We call it a public pinup session. And you're going to walk through, much like the issues and the design plans you see off to the right here and up here. We're going to walk through some of the design, those concept designs, those before and after photo sims, renderings. We're going to show you different perspectives. Some of the things you'll like, and we'll move it ahead. Other things you won't. We're going to take that idea, throw it to the ground, and walk on to the next big idea. This is transparent, good feedback loops every day. Every day we're going to have this format here to interact with you, which is really, really great. Last but not least, we're going to have planners, engineers, landscape architects, and urban designers all under one roof working 8-hour days, cranking on your project and your project only. And then up here on the left, you saw just one of the focus groups we had, church outreach and some of the low-income folks and church representatives that represented some of the communities around the corridor. So really transparent, really fun. And at the end of this, we will produce those design concepts that we talked about earlier. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Aaron, or actually Jonathan. Which one of you are going to cover the project website?
Yeah, Jonathan, I'll speak real quick and then turn it over to you if that's cool.
That'll be fine.
Yeah, so I really wanted to thank everyone for coming. I think word of mouth is our biggest marketing tool, and you guys have done a just fantastic job of spreading the word. So just if you can continue to engage through the online survey and our Facebook page, that's where we'll be. That's kind of our hub, informational hub. And I'll put my email in the chat. So if you want to receive information regarding the project, I'll put it in there. Feel free to email me. I'll be happy to add you, but turn it over to Jonathan.
Yes, thanks, Aaron. Again, I just want to thank everyone for participating. I think the public involvement in this process will make it successful. I also want to thank the mayor and council for being proactive to deal with this safety issue along 15th Street. Whatever the outcome may be, we will address the safety concerns. So I think that's a positive result for the community overall. We've had a great turnout on the online survey and interactive map, but encourage you to continue to spread the word on that, to provide feedback. And again, we look forward to going to the charrette and the design phase to develop a conceptual vision for this corridor. I think compromise is going to be a key term we'll use for everyone. But again, we want to hear everyone's opinion and kind of work through the process as we develop a conceptual design. But again, I want to thank the mayor and council, as well as everyone who's participated in tonight's meeting.
Awesome. Terrific. Thanks, Jonathan. Mayor Sadler, you want to say goodbye to all these wonderful people and close the meeting?
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Are there any thoughts of the condemnation?
Of condemnation? Not at this time. We don't have a design, so we don't know what we're impacting. I don't know who asked that, but it's way too early to discuss condemnation at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Mayor. Oh, you might have to unmute yourself.
There we are.
There you
There
go.
we are. Thanks everyone for taking part in this tonight on the redevelopment of 15th Street. Everyone's comment is very important. So thanks to everyone. And also thanks to Stantec for this format tonight. Great, y'all did a great job. Format went smoothly. I like that, where you had people interacting with the questions. But I also like for us to keep in mind that we need to avoid things from the previous design that encourage high commuter traffic and cause citizens to oppose this design from the last time. So we need to focus on safety and coming up with a design that DOT will fund and support. And again, thank everyone taking part in this tonight, and looking forward to another one. I think we're going to do a total of 3 symposium, I believe. So looking forward to conversing with everyone again. Everyone have a great evening. Thank you.